You know that feeling in late July? You walk past the front porch and there they are. The pots you filled back in April, $60 a color, maybe 80, and now it's brown stems and dried dirt and a small knot of guilt in your chest. And it wasn't just the money. It was your knees on that concrete. It was hauling 40-pound bags of soil from the trunk. It was bending over a watering can every evening through June, doing everything they told you and watching it die anyway. Here's what I want you to hear before anything else. Those plants didn't quit because you got lazy. They quit because they were never going to live. Nobody at that store pointed you to the plants that come back. And there's a reason nobody pointed. We'll get to that. My name is Walter Hayes. I'm 68 years old, and I farm the same Ozark ground in Missouri that my grandfather worked back in the 1940s. These days, a good share of what I grow lives in pots on the porch, because Margaret and I decided a while back that the garden should bend to your body, not the other way round. So today, I'm giving you 17 perennials that come back in a pot year after year. Most cost less than $6 at planting. Most ask for one small job a year measured in minutes. And not one of them asks you to kneel. Now, number 12 on this list is the strange one. It gets prettier the more you ignore it. Water it like you love it, and you'll ruin it. I'd bet my hat you walked past it 100 times and never knew its secret. Don't you leave before we get there. Let's get into it. Number 1, sedum. Some folks call it stonecrop, and the old name was live forever, which tells you most of what you need to know. Pinch a leaf, and it feels thick, almost rubbery. That's because each leaf is a little canteen. The plant stores water in its own tissue, so it doesn't depend on you remembering the hose. In my experience, an established sedum in a pot will shrug off 3 or 4 dry weeks and not even sulk. Here's the trap with this one. Folks feed it. Rich soil and fertilizer make sedum grow tall and soft, and it flops over the rim like a tired dog. Lean soil keeps it tight and colorful, so don't fertilize it. Not once, not ever. Full sun, zones 3 through 9, a pot at least 16 inches across, and a deep watering maybe every 2 or 3 weeks in summer. Autumn joy turns a dusty copper pink come September. Dragon's blood runs low and red over the edge of the pot. Set it on the sunniest corner of the porch rail, waist high, and you'll never bend for it again. Number 2, lavender. And if you've killed lavender, you're in good company. I killed it for years. Nobody taught us different. Here's the truth of it. Lavender grew up on rocky Mediterranean hillsides, where the soil is mostly grit and the rain runs straight through. That bag of moisture-holding potting mix, the one with the word moisture printed proud on the front, is what kills it. Wet feet rot it from the roots up. The fix costs almost nothing. Mix 2 parts plain potting soil with 1 part coarse perlite. Use a pot with at least 3 drainage holes, and never set a saucer under it. Then leave it alone. No fertilizer, ever. A slightly hungry lavender makes more oil, and the oil is the perfume. English lavender, the one called Hidcote, takes winters down to zone 5. If you're in the humid south, ask for phenomenal, zones 6 through 9. Full sun, 6 hours or better. Put the pot beside the chair where you sit of an evening. Brush it with your hand as you pass. That smell is free, and it runs off mosquitoes besides. Number 3, Russian sage. Silver white stems, a haze of blue-purple bloom, and it flowers from July clean into October. 4 months. Most perennials give you 4 or 6 weeks and call it a season. The whole maintenance plan is one job. Late February, cut the stems down to 6 inches. 30 seconds with the pruners, standing up. It comes back fuller every year. Zones 4 through 9, full sun, and it actually grows tighter and neater in a pot than in the ground, because the contained roots keep it from sprawling. The mistake folks make is babying it. Extra water in August turns it floppy. Dry and mean is how it likes to live. Now, one honest word. Russian sage is a banquet for pollinators. By August, it will hum with honeybees and a bumblebee or two. I count that a blessing. But if you or a grandbaby carries a bee allergy, set this pot away from the door, not beside it. Margaret keeps ours out by the garden gate, and the bees mind their business out there. Number 4, hens and chicks. The only plant I know that pays you back in plants. The big rosette in the middle is the hen. The little ones crowding around her skirt are the chicks, and every chick is a whole plant. Pull one loose with 2 fingers, press it into another pot, and it roots itself without ceremony. One $5 plant becomes a windowsill, then a porch step, then gifts for the neighbors. These things grew up on alpine rock, in thin soil and bitter wind. Your porch is luxury to them. Zones 3 through 8, full sun, and a pot as shallow as 4 inches suits them fine, which means a wide bowl on the porch rail at standing height. No bending at all. The trap here is drainage. A hen sitting in soggy soil after a week of rain will rot, and she'll do it quietly. Gritty mix, holes in the bottom, no saucer. Give her a dry seat, and she puts her energy into making babies instead of just hanging on. Before number 5, let me say one thing plain. If you've spent the last few springs buying the same plants twice, subscribing to this channel is the cheapest thing you'll do in the garden this year. It's free, and it stays free. I put these videos out near every day, and the point of every one of them is the same. Stop the garden from costing you money and knees. All right. Number 5, cat mint, the variety called Walker's Low. From May until frost, it makes soft clouds of blue-purple over gray-green stems, and the butterflies work it all day long. Compare that to the petunias they sell you every spring. Petunias want deadheading twice a week, feeding, and a funeral every fall. Catmint wants one haircut. When the first flush of bloom goes tired in July, shear the whole plant back by half. It looks rough for about 10 days. Then it comes back and blooms harder than the first round, clear to frost. Skip that cut and you lose 6 weeks of color, and that's the mistake nearly everybody makes. Zones 3 through 8, full sun to a touch of afternoon shade, water once a week once it's settled. One more thing, because somebody will ask. It's kin to catnip, and while most cats walk on by, every so often one decides your pot makes a fine mattress. If that happens, stand a few short sticks upright in the soil. Problem solved, nobody hurt. Number 6, hosta. And I'll tell you something that sounds backwards. A hosta is better off in a pot than in the ground. In the ground, slugs chew the leaves to lace, and heavy soil rots the crown. Up in a pot, the slugs mostly can't reach it, and you control the water. Some in substance throws chartreuse leaves the size of dinner plates that glow in a dark corner like there's a lamp under them. Patriot is deep green with white edges, clean as fresh paint. Zones 3 through 9. Shade to morning sun, and down south, Afternoon shade is not optional. Water deeply once or twice a week in summer. Now I'll be straight with you, because that's the only way I know how to talk. You'll hear that hostas are deer resistant. They are not. To a deer, a hosta is pie cooling on a windowsill. The pot doesn't change the flavor, but it changes the address. Keep hostas on the porch, near the door and the porch light, and the deer will mostly let them be. Out by the back fence, you're just setting the table. Number 7, coral bells. This one earns its keep with leaves, not flowers. Burgundy so dark it reads black. Lime green that lights up shade. A caramel orange one that shifts a little every month from April to frost. In zones 7 through 9, it holds those leaves all winter. Zones 4 through 9, overall. The mistake is tucking it into deep shade and wondering why the color washes out gray. Coral bells color up in bright light. 2 or 3 hours of gentle morning sun is the sweet spot. Move the pot 10 feet to catch the early light, and you'll see the difference inside 2 weeks. That's the quiet advantage of pots. When the plant is in the wrong spot, you pick it up and fix it. Water once a week, no fertilizer needed, and it sits tidy in the same 16-inch pot for 6-8 years. My grandfather never grew these. I believe he'd have approved. Leaves that handsome with no work would have suited him fine. Number 8, astilbe. When this one blooms, people assume you know something they don't. Feathery plumes in white, pink, and deep red, standing over ferny leaves like something a florist arranged. It looks expensive. It isn't, and it isn't difficult. But it is the one plant on this list that genuinely wants a drink. Astilbe likes steady moisture, and that's exactly why a pot suits it. In the ground, it's at the mercy of a dry August. In a pot, you decide. Morning sun, afternoon shade, zones 3 through 8, water 2 or 3 times a week in high summer. The error folks make is cutting the spent plumes too early. Leave them standing. They dry to a warm russet brown and look handsome into November, and then one snip in early spring is the whole year's work. Bridal veil is pure white. Fennel is deep red over bronze leaves, and it will stop a visitor mid-sentence. Number 9, Japanese painted fern. Silver gray fronds with a burgundy rib down the middle, like somebody hand-painted every leaf and took their time doing it. This is the plant guests point at and ask about. Deep shade to morning light, zones 3 through 8, and it stays put. Never invasive, never needs dividing. Water weekly, and otherwise let it alone. Here's the error, and almost everybody makes it. Cutting the old fronds down in fall to tidy up. Don't. Those dead fronds lie over the crown all winter like a blanket, and in a pot, where roots feel the cold worse than they ever do in the ground, that blanket matters. Clean them off in early spring when the new fiddleheads show, and not a day sooner. The variety called Ghost is nearly pure silver. In a dark corner, it almost gives off its own light. Number 10, Bergenia. The old folks called it pig squeak because if you rub a leaf between your fingers, it squeaks like a wet boot. Thick, glossy leaves the size of your hand. Green the whole year. In fall, they turn a deep burgundy red. And the colder it gets, the deeper the color goes. Up in zones 3 and 4, that red against the first snow is the best show this plant gives all year. Then in early spring, pink flower clusters come up before most plants have so much as stretched. Zones 3 through 8. Shade, drought, poor soil, plain forgetfulness. It takes all of it. The mistake is fussing. I've got a pot of it that hasn't been fed since Margaret planted it, and it has never once looked worse for the neglect. If you want one pot that looks alive in January without a minute of work, this is the one. Now stay with me, because we're closing in on the strange one. Number 12, the plant that punishes kindness and rewards neglect. Two more first, and one of them brings the goldfinches right to your porch rail. Number 11, black-eyed Susan. Gold petals around a dark center, blooming July through September, and a mature plant carries dozens of flowers at once. In my experience, more bloom per dollar than anything else you can put in a pot. Goldsturm is the steady old reliable. Zones 3 through 9, full sun, water, weekly in heat. And here's the part that makes it a bargain. It gets better. The first year's decent. The second year's better. By the third year, the roots have built up underneath, and it blooms like it's showing off. You're not buying a plant so much as making a down payment. When the petals drop in fall, don't cut the seed heads. Leave them standing all winter. Goldfinches ride those stems on cold mornings and pick them clean right outside the window where you drink your coffee. That show costs you nothing but the not doing of a chore. My kind of arrangement. Before the big one, do something for me. Put your state in the comments or your USDA zone if you know it. I rid everyone, and what you tell me decides what we cover next. A pot in Minnesota and a pot in Georgia live two different lives, and I'd rather talk to the folks who are actually out there. Number 12, lamb's ear. The plant I told you about at the start, and I want to take a minute here because once you understand this one, you understand half of gardening. Reach down and touch a leaf. Soft as a rabbit's ear, silver white, the one plant every grandchild pets without being told. Those soft hairs are not decoration. Lamb's ear comes off dry, rocky hills in Turkey, and the hairs are its survival kit. They bounce hard sunlight off the leaf so it doesn't cook, and they trap a thin layer of dry air against the skin of the leaf so its water can't escape. Now here's the part that matters. When you water it generously, the way we were all raised to love a plant, those hairs mat down flat. They start trapping wet instead of dry, and the plant rots from the outside in while you stand there feeling virtuous with a hose. Water it stingy and the hairs stand up, the silver gets brighter, and the whole thing turns into a piece of sculpture. Neglect is not a failure with lamb's ear. Neglect is the instruction. Full sun, zones 4 through 8, a gritty, fast-draining mix, and water maybe twice a month in summer. Less if it rains. The variety Helen von Stein hardly ever flowers, so all its effort goes into those big silver leaves. The old people knew this because they had to. Nobody had water to waste on a plant that never asked for it. Number 13, daylily. Each bloom opens at sunrise and is done by dark. One day, that's the deal. But a healthy stem carries a string of buds waiting behind it, and they take turns, so the pot stays in color from June into September. Stella de Oro is the compact gold one that just doesn't quit. Zones 3 through 9, full sun to part shade, water twice a week in summer, and divided every 3 or 4 years. In a pot, that's a job done standing at a table, not on your knees in the dirt. 2 honest warnings now, and I mean both of them. First, daylilies are dangerously toxic to cats. Not upset stomach toxic. Kidney failure toxic. Even the pollen. If a cat shares your porch, skip this plant entirely. There are 16 others on this list. Second, Deer love the buds, same sad story as the hostas. Keep the pot close to the house. Do those two things, and this is one of the easiest flowers a person can own. Number 14. Ornamental grass. Carl Forster feather reed grass stands straight as a fence post, 4 feet of wheat-colored plumes that move and whisper every time the wind comes through. If your porch pots feel frozen and silent, this is the missing piece: motion and sound. For a smaller pot, blue fescue makes a tidy blue-gray tuft about 10 inches tall. Carl Forster runs zones 4 through 9, the fescue 4 through 8, both in full sun. The entire year's maintenance is one cut. Late February, shear it to 6 inches, and it comes back taller. The era is cutting in fall. Leave it standing. A tall grass catching low winter sun, frost riding the seed heads, is about the only thing in January that makes a porch look tended instead of abandoned. And in a pot, it can't do the one rude thing big grasses do in the ground, which is wander off where you never asked it to go. Number 15. Coneflower. A native prairie flower, purple petals around a copper cone, blooming June through September, and the bees and butterflies treat it like a diner. Magnus is the dependable purple. White swan is white with an orange heart. Zones 3 through 9, full sun, water weekly. The trap with coneflower is generosity. Rich soil and fertilizer make it grow tall, soft, and floppy. Kept lean and a little hungry, it stands up straight and blooms harder. Sound familiar by now? Half the plants on this list are telling you the same thing. Come fall, leave the seed cones standing, same as the black-eyed Susans. The finches will work them through the cold months, and any seed that drops into a neighboring pot may hand you a free volunteer in spring. A flower that feeds the birds all winter and plants its own children. The seed companies can't be too fond of it. Number 16. Hellebore. The Christmas rose. This plant blooms in the snow. Picture February in your yard. Gray, wet, everything asleep, and one pot by the front step holding open flowers in white or dusty pink or deep wine red. Hellebore blooms from roughly December into March or April, the longest bloom of any perennial you can buy, and it does it when nothing else will keep it company. Evergreen leaves the rest of the year, thick and glossy. Zones 4 through 9, shade to part shade. It hates wet feet in winter, which makes a well-drained pot better than most ground you could offer it. Plant it in fall, water it in, then leave it be. One caution: short and serious. Hellebore is toxic if eaten, to pets and to people. It's bitter enough that almost nothing tries twice, but if your dog chews greenery, set the pot up out of reach. Deer and rabbits, for once, want nothing to do with it. Number 17. And I saved this one for what it looks like in December. Evergreen sedum. Autumn fire is the one to ask for. Through summer, it builds a tight mound of blue-green. In September, the flower heads open pink and slowly burn down to a deep copper red. And then, instead of collapsing, the stems and seed heads just stand there. Frost lands on them, and they look carved. Snow caps them, and they hold. Zones 3 through 9, full sun, water every couple of weeks, then stop entirely in fall. Never divide it, never feed it, never fuss. Between this and the hellebore, your front step in January can look like somebody designed it on purpose. And the whole trick was leaving 2 pots alone from October to March. There's a kind of beauty in that. Most of the best things in a garden happen while you're inside by the stove. Now hold on, because you can buy all 17 and still lose them if you miss three things. These three kill more potted plants than drought and winter put together. First, drainage. The number one killer of container plants in this country is not thirst. It's drowning. Roots sitting in waterlogged soil can't breathe, and they rot before the leaves show you a single sign. Every pot needs at least 3 half-inch holes in the bottom. No saucers under the drought lovers. If water pools on the surface for more than a half a minute, the mix is too heavy. Second, pot size. And this answers the question I hear most from folks up north. Will a perennial live through winter in a pot in zone 3, 4, 5? In a small pot, often it won't. A 10-inch pot freezes solid, clean through the roots. A pot 20 inches or better holds enough soil to blunt the freeze. So 16 inches is the floor. Bigger is better. And in the coldest zones, shove the pot against a south-facing wall for the winter, or into an unheated garage. That one little move buys you about a full zone of protection. And fill big pots where they'll live, by the way. I learned that 30 years back. No, closer to 35 now. A planted 20-inch pot is a backache with a flower in it. Third, the soil. Half-quality potting mix. 30% coarse perlite, 20% compost, half, 30, 20. Then each spring, scrape off the top 2 inches and replace it with fresh compost. 10 minutes a pot once a year, standing up. That's the whole program. Let me run back through this the way your yard actually asks the questions. For the blazing hot spot where everything fries by August, sedum, lavender, Russian sage, lamb's ear, and coneflower. For the shady corner that's defeated you for years, hosta, coral bells, astilbe, the painted fern, and bergenia. For knees and backs that have already done their share, hens and chicks in a bowl at standing height, coral bells that sit tidy in one pot for most of a decade, and a grass that asks for 1 cut a year. For the husband who forgets the hose exists, sedum, lamb's ear, hens and chicks. Honestly, they'd rather he forgot. For winter, when you want one sign of life by the door, hellebore, bergenia, the evergreen sedum, and a tall grass for the frost to land on, and if cats live with you, plant anything on this list except the daylily. You might wonder why nobody at the garden center ever walks you over to these plants. There's no conspiracy in it, just arithmetic. A perennial that comes back for 10 years sells once. A flat of annuals sells every April to the same customer forever. The stores aren't lying to you. They're stocking what the business rewards. And the business rewards plants that die on schedule. My grandfather's generation traded this knowledge over the fence line for free. When the fence line went quiet, the only voice left was the one with something to sell. Here's your job this week, and it costs nothing. Before Sunday, take your morning coffee outside and find the one pot or the one porch corner that's beaten you the longest. Don't fix anything. Just stand there and notice what that spot gets. Sun in the morning or the afternoon? Wind. How far it sits from the spigot? Match that spot to this list, and you've done the thinking part. The planting part is the easy 10 minutes. And before you go, did your mother or your grandmother keep something alive in a pot or a coffee can on the back steps? A geranium that came inside every winter, maybe? Tell me about it in the comments. Those little family habits are exactly the kind of thing that disappears when nobody writes them down. I read every single one. In the next one, I'm covering the watering mistakes that kill potted plants faster than any drought, including the one I made for 20 years before an old neighbor set me straight. If you've ever drowned a plant out of pure kindness, you'll want to see it. That's the old garden way. I'll see you in the garden.